Hi everyone, the latest development in the ongoing investigation surrounding Daystar personality Josh Brown has just exploded with new, chilling eyewitness testimony. These aren't rumors from the shadows. These are detailed, first-hand accounts from within the family's inner circle, and they paint a deeply troubling picture of concerning behavior towards a young girl known as Baby Lamb. If you're following this story, you need to see this. Like and subscribe to this channel now for continuous coverage and share your thoughts in the comments below. The first cracks in the foundation appeared not in a courtroom, but in a green room, backstage at the Daystar television network, a place typically buzzing with the polished, pre-show energy of a major Christian broadcasting network. JW, the husband of Rebecca Weiss, describes two separate moments in that space that he says were burned into his memory with a searing clarity that time has not diminished. The first incident unfolded without warning. He walked into the room and the atmosphere shifted instantly. The scene before him felt unnervingly wrong. There was Josh Brown, a man he knew well, and the young girl they call Baby Lamb. On the surface, there was no overtly violent act, nothing you could legally define as assault in a statute book. But the feeling in the room was thick with a discomfort so palpable it felt like a physical presence. Brown's posture, his intense proximity, the very energy passing between him and the child was, in JW's own carefully chosen words, highly inappropriate. He watched, his own senses heightening, as Baby Lamb, seemingly mirroring his own unease, physically stiffened. Her small frame, which should have been relaxed and carefree, was tense. This wasn't the warm, casual hug from a friendly uncle. This was something else entirely, a charged interaction that made the air in the room feel heavy and hard to breathe. It was a moment suspended in time, a silent alarm bell ringing in JW's mind that he could not unhear. This wasn't a solitary data point. A second incident, later, in that same green room, only served to solidify and compound his fears. Again, the social dynamic was off-kilter. Again, the child seemed visibly uncomfortable, her body language speaking a silent language of distress that her words perhaps could not, or felt she was not allowed, to articulate. For JW, a man embedded in this family and its faith-based community, these were not minor social missteps or simple awkwardness. They were profound, intentional breaches of appropriate adult-child boundaries. The fact that this pattern of uncomfortable, intimate behavior manifested not once, but twice, in the same semi-private environment suggested a troubling comfort level, a repeated crossing of lines that he found, in its totality, to be deeply and fundamentally alarming. But this harrowing story isn't just about two isolated moments behind the scenes at a television studio. It's fundamentally about a dawning realization, a slow-motion avalanche of clarity that turned private concern into outright fear and a sense of public duty. For Rebecca and JW, the critical journey between their first, somewhat tentative police interview and their second, far more assertive one, was a period of devastating personal and intellectual clarity. It was during this introspective time that they rediscovered a bombshell document from their own past, a piece of evidence that had been sitting in their own records, waiting to be understood in its full context, a detailed, heartfelt letter JW had meticulously written back in 2021. Reading his own words from years prior was a jarring, almost out-of-body experience. The letter was not a vague expression of worry. It was a stark, contemporaneous chronicle of unease, a precise timeline of every odd moment, every lingering glance, every instance where Josh Brown's specific behavior toward Baby Lamb had struck JW's conscience as being fundamentally wrong. The passage of time had inevitably softened the sharp edges of these individual memories, blurring them into a general fog of concern, but the letter brought each one back with brutal, undeniable clarity. It was a testament to their long-standing, deeply felt concern, proving irrefutably that their current alarm was not a recent fabrication or a story concocted for attention, but the culmination of a years-long process of observation and gut-wrenching worry. This personal audit of their own history was then powerfully compounded by a conversation with a new, crucial voice, a witness from inside the household who had her own independent account. This double revelation, the rediscovered written record and the compelling new testimony, acted like a key decisively turning a lock. Their understanding of the entire situation seismically shifted from a loose collection of worrying, seemingly disconnected anecdotes into a coherent, interconnected, and much more sinister pattern of behavior. They were no longer just concerned relatives on the periphery. They were now, they felt, the custodians of a damning timeline that pointed relentlessly toward a truth they felt morally and ethically compelled to expose, regardless of the personal and familial cost. That crucial new voice from within the household's inner sanctum belongs to Sylvia, who served as a housekeeper for Joni Lamb. Her testimony, given from the unique perspective of someone who operates in the background of family life, doesn't just add another layer to the story. It fundamentally challenges and dismantles the official narrative the family had previously constructed and relied upon. Sylvia directly and unequivocally disputes the explanation given for a specific incident during a 2021 beach trip, an event that had previously been waved away as a misunderstanding. The family's story, the one meant to provide a benign explanation, was that Josh Brown had gone upstairs after baby Lamb because another child had invited him to join them. Sylvia, who was present and witness to the actual flow of events, states with authority that this is simply not true. She clarifies that the young girl was simply told by an adult to go upstairs and change her clothes, a solitary, routine task, and it was precisely at that moment, in that context, that Brown deliberately followed her. This recalibration of a single event's motive is critically important. It actively transforms a potentially innocent, socially driven interaction into a deliberate, targeted act with undeniably troubling implications. But Sylvia, in her commitment to providing a full picture, didn't stop there. She also courageously disclosed a previously unreported observation, something she had never felt able to tell anyone before, and memory that had weighed on her. She described seeing Josh Brown in a pool, showing what she called repeated and overly familiar physical affection toward baby Lamb. She meticulously noted that the behavior was unusual, that it stood out to her professional eye, and that it made her so personally uncomfortable that the scene was etched vividly in her memory. This account, coming from a neutral, household worker with no apparent axe to grind, carries significant investigative weight, powerfully corroborating the family's internal fears with an independent, ground-level perspective that is notoriously difficult to impeach. Perhaps the most disturbing and visceral single account from the entire new body of testimony comes from JW once more, and it didn't happen in a public green room or a communal pool, but in the private, intimate space of a bedroom. JW recounted the moment he entered a room unexpectedly, without the formality of a knock, a simple act that would unveil a scene of profound discomfort. What he saw inside left him physically and emotionally frozen. Josh Brown and baby Lamb were together, alone on a bed. The scene itself, stripped of context, might be interpreted differently by different people, but it was the immediate and visceral reaction of the room's occupants that sealed the horror for JW. Both Brown and the child were simultaneously and visibly startled, jolting as if they had been caught in an intensely private, secret moment. That shared, unguarded jolt of surprise, that flash of alarm on both their faces, is what JW says left him deeply and profoundly unsettled, a feeling that lingered long after he left the doorway. In that instant, any lingering doubt he may have harbored about the nature of these interactions, any charitable benefit of the doubt he had struggled to extend, evaporated into a cold, hard certainty. The unspoken language of their bodies, the compromising context of a closed bedroom, the guilty reaction, it all pointed overwhelmingly to a situation that was, at its very best, wildly inappropriate and a gross violation of boundaries, and, at its worst, pointed toward something far darker and more predatory. This bedroom encounter became the central, pivotal piece of evidence in their own minds, the moment the abstract, nagging worry crystallized into a concrete and terrifying certainty that demanded action. All of these accumulated observations, the charged moments in the green rooms, the overly familiar behavior in the pool, the deeply unsettling bedroom encounter, have led Rebecca and JW to a painful but inescapable conclusion. A profound and heartbreaking loss of confidence in the very family circle meant to be the primary protectors of baby lamb. They have stated explicitly, in their official statements, that they have lost all trust not only in Josh Brown, the subject of the allegations, but also, devastatingly, in the child's own parents, Jonathan and Susie Lamb. They are now openly and painfully questioning whether the parents, confronted with the same concerns, are actively prioritizing the protection of the family's reputation and the financial health of the multi-million-dollar Daystar network empire over the immediate safety and long-term well-being of their own daughter. This accusation strikes at the very heart of the family dynamic, suggesting that a corrosive culture of silence and denial has been allowed to fester and spread. The interviews with police paint a stark picture of deep, systemic family strain, with members allegedly feeling intense, unspoken pressure to circle the wagons and protect the valuable family name at all costs. There are specific claims that Josh Brown himself was a source of division among relatives, skillfully creating a "you're either with us or against us" mentality that systematically made it difficult, socially and emotionally, for anyone to speak out or express dissent. This suffocating environment, where powerful business interests and a carefully cultivated public image are perceived to be valued above unconditional truth and radical transparency, is precisely what Rebecca and JW believe allowed their initial, and then their repeated, concerns to be minimized, rationalized, and ultimately sidelined for so long. This immense pressure to remain silent, to conform to the family narrative, was powerfully and personally reinforced by a specific, pivotal conversation JW had with the child's own father, Jonathan Lamb. JW shared that Jonathan had once told him directly, and with an air of finality, that he had already forgiven Josh Brown for whatever had transpired and that he wanted the entire family to move forward from the issue. For a father to express unilateral forgiveness in a situation where his own young, vulnerable daughter was the specific subject of grave concern sent an unmistakably powerful message throughout the family structure. To JW and Rebecca, it was not a statement of spiritual maturity. It was a clear, direct signal to drop the matter entirely, to let it go, to stop rocking the boat. This directive, coming from the very person who should have been the child's most fierce and uncompromising defender, initially served as a powerful deterrent, successfully discouraging them from pressing their concerns further with authorities or within the family. It actively made them question their own perceptions, their own sanity. Were they overreacting? Were they being dramatic? Was this truly not as serious as their guts were screaming it was? This is the insidious, corrosive power of intense familial and institutional pressure. It can systematically dismantle a person's confidence in their own eyes and their own conscience, replacing truth with doubt. It was only the overwhelming, cumulative weight of their own mounting evidence, the rediscovered letter, the corroborating account from Sylvia, their own vivid and consistent memories, that finally gave them the courage to break through that powerful pressure and speak to authorities again, this time with unwavering conviction. That hard-won courage is now physically embodied in a single, crucial piece of evidence, the detailed, contemporaneous record of concerns that JW personally wrote in 2021. This wasn't just a private diary entry or a casual note. It was a methodical, timely, and disciplined accounting of everything he had seen, heard, and felt uneasy about, written in the moment or immediately after the events occurred. He documented dates, specific locations, social contexts, and precise behaviors, creating a contemporaneous timeline that is evidentially invaluable to law enforcement investigators. This document, later handed over to police, became the key piece of evidence in reopening and seriously substantiating the inquiry. It provides a verifiable paper trail that predates any public scandal, media attention, or formal criminal investigation, thereby lending immense credibility to their claims. It forensically proves that these distorted in hindsight, but were instead real-time. Visceral reactions to events that were so disturbing to a bystander that they warranted being formally written down at the time as a record of truth. In a complex case like this, one that often frustratingly hinges on he said, she said testimony, this written record is a tangible anchor point, a piece of the past that has now forcefully intruded upon the present, demanding that the truth, whatever it may be, is finally heard, investigated, and acknowledged. This remains a fluid and developing situation, and we are committed to bringing you the facts as they emerge. For the latest updates on this and other important stories, make sure to subscribe. These weren't memories concocted, colluded upon, or distorted.